Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar this afternoon on Food for Life 7 to 10, supporting teachers and students through AC version 9.0. My name is Savika Cummins, and I'm the Educational Resource Consultant for South Australia and the ACT. Before I start, in the spirit of reconciliation, Cambridge University Press and Assessment acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and the connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples today. This webinar is being recorded and you'll receive a link to this recording along with the opportunity to provide feedback to your experience this evening, and you can expect this to arrive in your inbox within a week. You can ask questions in the chat box, which we will be monitoring throughout the webinar. Or if you would prefer to wait until the end, you can ask any questions during the Q&A session with the authors and the Cambridge team members. It's important to note that this evening's webinar has a large number of attendees and there will be limited time for Q&A, so please feel comfortable to add your questions in the chat box throughout the presentation. I will be detailing publication dates, page proof dates and product pricing at the end of the webinar, so please stay tuned till then. Before we begin, I would like to introduce you to our highly esteemed authors speaking this afternoon. Firstly, we will have Fiona Matthews. Fiona is an experienced food studies, health and human development and science teacher who has dedicated her career to education. She has been an author for VCE Health and Human Development and Junior Food Technology texts for numerous publishers. Fiona's passions lie in professional development, curriculum and pedagogy. She has held leading roles in these areas and has conducted teaching and learning coaching in both secondary and primary schools. Fiona served as a VCAA coach in the health and physical education domain, incorporating respectful relationships, and has held seasonal teaching roles in tertiary level. Fiona believes that all students can be encouraged to learn, and she brings this philosophy into the classroom. She works on developing mature respect with her students in order to help them to achieve their personal best. We are also lucky to have Chrissy Collins. Chrissy is an experienced health and human development and food studies teacher. She has been an author for Cambridge University Press since 2007, developing junior and senior health and human development and food studies textbooks. Chrissy regularly presents at professional development events on student engagement, pedagogy, and exam success. She is also an experienced VCAA exam assessor and a writer of trial exams and support material. Chrissy aims to motivate and inspire her own students by sharing her love for learning and passion for her subject areas and by working with each individual student to help them reach their full potential. So without further ado, I will hand you over to our first speaker, which has prepared a little video for us. Thank you.
The Australian Curriculum version 9.0. The first few slides I'm going to show you is about the Australian curriculum, which in actual fact is very similar to the former versions, with a few minor changes in terms of reduction of content or the consolidating of certain learning areas so that we can teach the whole curriculum with more rigour and depth, and we'll be talking a little bit about that in a little while. Okay, let's have a look at technologies in particular. These few slides here are taken directly from the curriculum materials on the Australian Curriculum website. Food for Life focuses on the design and technologies, although we do provide some learning opportunities in the use of digital technologies throughout the text, so that teachers and students can actually learn technologies through digital methods. So these two are the two strands, design and technologies and digital technologies, that students study within the technology area. Let's look now in design and technologies a little bit more detail. The two substrands, knowledge and understanding, and processes and production skills, make up the two areas. The processes and production skills are to be taught in all of these knowledge and understanding areas. So technologies in society, engineering principles, food and fibre, food specialisation, materials and technologies. In teaching that, students need to understand the processes and production skills and be able to utilise them by the end of year 10. During year 7 and 8, by the end of year 8, students have to have the opportunity to create at least 3 design solutions and have addressed each of the 4 technologies contexts. So those 4 that are mentioned in the Australian curriculum document papers are engineering principles, food and fibre, food specialisations, and materials and technology specialisations. It may be that with some schools they may have limited resources, maybe low student numbers, maybe a new school where things are just beginning to be set up. It is possible to meet the Australian curriculum requirements of those 4 areas through foods. So looking at, say, for example, engineering, a student may be required to design a tool that they perhaps could use to stir a pot on a stove constantly, so they don't have to stand there and stir it. Food and fibre production, so where our food comes from. Food specialisations, looking at food and food as a material and food as an ingredient in our daily living, and materials and technologies, and you could actually look at food as that material. It's highly unlikely, but it is possible to actually design a curriculum around that. That's at 7 and 8. At 9 and 10, how a student accesses technology subjects will be determined by either the state and territory authorities or the actual individual schools themselves. However, it means by the end of year 10, a student should have had the opportunity to create at least 4 design solutions, and they should be focused on one or more of those technologies contexts that we spoke about for 7 and 8. But that is a school and state territory decision rather than a mandated requirement. Pardon me. Within the Australian curriculum in technologies, there are 2 key considerations now whilst planning our curriculum, and these are animal ethics and biosecurity. And Food for Life throughout each chapter actually has a section on animal ethics and or biosecurity and or environmental sustainability. So the key consideration from the Australian curriculum is actually significantly covered throughout Food for Life. It's explicitly taught. The other area is food and nutrition in the Australian curriculum. In the Australian curriculum, students learn about food and nutrition in 2 areas. The first one is health and physical education, and the second one is in design and technologies. The focus of each is slightly different. In the health and PE curriculum, students develop knowledge and understanding of nutrition principles to enable them to make healthy food choices and then consider the range of influences on their food choices. So that's the health and PE. In design and technology, students learn about the characteristics and properties of food and then apply this knowledge along with nutrition principles learnt in health and PE to the selection and presentation of food that is healthy. So designing healthy food solutions for consumers. It is possible for students to perhaps study the health and PE areas within the foods, so that within a whole school curriculum, the Australian curriculum is being met in a more efficient way, I guess, in terms of school planning. Okay, within the whole package of the Food for Life, there are other areas that the text and the supporting material supports implementation in your classroom. The teacher support materials actually provide a 7 to 10 course outline based on the new Australian Curriculum 9.0, using the text and other materials provided for teachers as the basis for it. So that is available throughout this text. When as I said before, the curriculum is very familiar, and of course, as you said, noticed before, there is still a requirement for students to understand the properties of ingredients. That's the investigation part, and when they do that investigation, using that knowledge to design solutions to problems. The text, however, had a slight change in focus. Students still need to know those properties of ingredients, but instead of looking at each ingredient as a separate entity throughout chapter texts or text chapters, the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating is used as the basis for exploration of the properties of food. So that nutrition basis required in the key considerations is linked to the properties of ingredients, and the book provides that link throughout. Other ways it is supported: environmental and sustainability issues, as I said before, are listed in each chapter. And also another key consideration required is that there are now significant references to and an exploration of the histories and cultures of First Nations Australians, including their contributions to our foods and food patterns and future developments in food production. So that is looked at extensively throughout the new Food for Life 7 to 10. A little quote from the Australian Curriculum Preamble. The Australian curriculum was developed to improve the quality, equity and transparency of Australia's education system. As teachers, we are aware of the extremely broad skills, knowledge and level of students within our classroom. I'm sure you've all got students in your classroom, in the prac area at least, for example, who can't even crack an egg, and others who have been with their parents or grandparents or carers every day in the kitchen since they were toddlers, helping prepare food, and so are very, very familiar with food and food properties and how to use it. This practical range is enormous, but we also, let's think about the actual knowledge or skill level of students in terms of literacy, numeracy, etc., is also broad. Food for Life builds in opportunities for teachers to adapt their curriculum to cater for this wide variety of student skills, ability, understandings, because the text provides developmental learning throughout. Each chapter, early chapters build skills and knowledge, and later chapters use these learnings to further explore technology. So there's a developmental thing. If you have a child who is struggling with a knowledge, they can refer back throughout the text to where they may review or refresh or increase their knowledge about skills and knowledge that they might need in a later class. That's for students who perhaps aren't at standard and you need supporting to actually improve, to bring them to standard or help them at their level. All chapters, however, we do have students working above levels. All chapters include extension activities, and that also includes the recipes that are provided throughout. So not all recipes have extension activities, but that many do have suggestions or added areas to help teachers with extensions. Low literacy and or non-English speaking background students are supported by a visual glossary of ingredients, tools and equipment at the back of the book, and throughout the teacher support materials, supporting videos to demonstrate skills. Those same videos can be used perhaps as flipped learning, so the students may look at those videos of the recipes being built or particular skills being developed before they come to school to actually make that product in class. And teachers who perhaps are teaching foods for the first time, or who foods as a technology component isn't their major area, can actually use those videos to help them develop the skills or teach their students the skills that are required. Food for Life is also a very useful tool in the development of your own curriculum plans to meet the Australian version 9.9. And I'm hoping a little talk I've given you is give you some a little bit of insight into how Food for Life is actually supporting you as a teacher in your new curriculum planning. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Fiona. And hi, everyone. Over to me now. And I wanted to start by just saying thank you so much for spending your Thursday afternoon with us. I'm not sure what your day's been like. 6 periods straight in the kitchen. So I'm fired up and ready for tonight on this book. And I want us to start, please, with a little quick activity, a bit of a brain break. Hopefully it will power us up to get through the rest of the afternoon, and focusing on my favourite part of food, the power of our senses. So if I say to you, snap, crackle, pop in the chat, what am I referring to? Snap, crackle, pop. Surely someone's going to get it for me. Who's my quickest digital contributor? Yeah, we've got it. We've got it. I can see it. Absolutely, it's rice bubbles. Let's also think a little bit more about some sound. If I do a big crunch, I'm holding something in my hand. It's round, it's green, it's sometimes different shades of red, can be golden if you're really lucky. It makes a big, loud, crunchy sound as I bite into it. What is it? I don't even have to hold it. You can all guess. The power of our senses. A beautiful apple. What if I said to you this? What if I've got in front of me, and I'll show you if you're lucky. I'm going to smell it first. I'm going to do it off screen so you can't see me. It's got quite a bland smell, but it does smell a bit like corn. It is pale yellow. It's quite puffed up. It's squashed together in a disc-type shape. When I eat it on my own, it's quite dry, but when I put some avocado or some cheese or some tomato on top, it really has a beautiful crisp texture. Can anyone guess what I've got? Might be tricky. I'm hoping with the power of description, you know what it is. Introducing the corn thin that I've had a little nibble of. I'm busted. So excellent. Well done. Great job, team. So that thinking around food and thinking about what have we got, and really getting students to understand the power of language. It was so cool today in my classroom. We were making smoky baked beans this afternoon, and they kept talking about the aroma. Can you smell that smoke? Oh, a hint of sweetness. So using that shift of language from smell to aroma, from look to appearance, it's really super cool. We could do this all day, but let's dive into my part of this PowerPoint. Well done for getting the corn thin. I love it. And the greatest thing about sensory analysis is that you can do all kinds of different activities all the time. And I love that you knew exactly what I was talking about. One of the things I find most frustrating is when I watch TV shows and they say, this is delicious, this is yum, I want more, where's the sauce? I go, no, describe it to me so I can feel it, smell it, taste it. So hopefully we're continuing to build those beautiful sensory skills in our students. We hope you love Food for Life as much as we do. We've worked really hard to bring it to life, and you've just listened to Fiona talk all about the Australian curriculum, and you can see how excited she is. It's so great. One of the things too that I wanted to talk about tonight is our focus on high impact teaching strategies. So again, shifting from, the curriculum to maybe more a little bit about pedagogy and thinking around what's been our focus, where are we going with this, and really connecting to our theories of action, our understanding visible learning, and trying to get the best for all of our students, because every student in the room needs something different. Every student in the room will respond differently to what we've got. We know they love being in the kitchen, but how can we shift that to love being with us all the time and helping ensure that we are getting the best from every single one of our young people, because they deserve it. One of of the things that we know that's really clear and effective teaching practice is setting goals and focusing on learning intentions. And lessons that have clear learning intentions with goals that clarify what success looks like are better lessons. We know that students perform, they've got a clear expectation, they know what they need to do to meet that expectation, plus that consistent, repetitive, expected practice helps our students feel confident and capable. Lesson goals always explain what students need to do to understand what they need to do in the classroom and what they must be able to do during and after the lesson, or perhaps your lesson sequencing might be the week that you're looking through. And as I'm talking to you about learning intentions, I'm hoping you're able to see some examples that we've popped in from the text. Having clear goals helps students and teachers plan the learning activities. It's really explicit about students, what they need to do and how they need to get there. And the explicit learning intention that's verbalising this to students highlights what success looks like. Students do better when they know what they're after, when we're clear, practical, articulate. So we've given you, and we've worked really hard to develop learning intentions for every section of the book. We've tried to help support all of the strategies that we know around teaching and that scaffold student success. And so you can see the learning intentions here provided for you. What we would suggest might be the next steps are developing success criteria. And in order to help our students develop their metacognition and their success and link with their learning styles is now developing as a class the success criteria. So if we're looking at to develop knowledge of the functional properties of food in cooking, what might the success criteria be? And how might that differ today? We're in the kitchen and we're coagulating eggs, for example, versus we're in the theory classroom, and what might that look like? So again, having a connection and giving students some autonomy, some agency, some working with you to get to the end, from the start to the end point. And I often explain it to my students like this. And, you know, it's a bit tricky because we grew up with the road map, right? In Melbourne, it's the Melways, the Q-ways in Queensland. So I always say, you don't just get in the car and drive to a destination. You would plan your journey. So now I've had to flick that switch a little bit. You don't just get in the car and type into Google Maps. Hopefully you look at first. And the kid that goes, no, just look at Google Maps. You go, have you ever been led astray? So for me, I see this and I explain it to my students. This is our roadmap of learning, our learning for the lesson or our learning for a sequence. It's our Google Maps of the classroom. And often I see that smile and that, yeah, now I know where I'm going. Really valuable practice and hopefully really valuable scaffold and support within the text to help you with your teaching. Collaborative learning is another strategy that we know is really successful for our students and in our classrooms. We've seen the evidence. We've learned about it through HITS. We've learned about it from John Hattie. So again, what have we done? How are we working to help support collaborative learning? Because we're really passionate about it and we love to see our community coming together. We know that collaborative learning occurs when students work in small groups and everyone participates. So it's not that small group task, but we've got one person over here working away and two people perhaps doing something different. It's got to be that collective effort. So one of the first challenges is getting them all in, every student having that opt-in, every student being excited about what they're doing, every student knowing and understanding their role. There are many different collaborative learning approaches. Each uses varying forms of organisations and tasks. What we've tried to do is make sure that we've covered every one of those types and ways. Small group, think, pair, share, class community, class brainstorm, research as a team. So hopefully we've done a really good job at giving you that variety, supporting your collaborative learning opportunities in your classroom. Collaborative learning is supported by designing meaningful tasks. So there's got to be some grunt towards what you're doing. Students have got to see the purpose, and these link back to the learning intentions and then the success criteria that you're working towards. It involves students negotiating their roles, participating in what they're doing, taking responsibility for their work, and working towards achieving an outcome together. Collaborative learning actually happens every day for all our students, and we see them often working collaboratively during break time. You see the football appear, the soccer ball, the down ball, there's different activities, the games even in the classroom. But to be successful, we need to give them a problem to solve together. We've got to give them that scaffold. Let's give them a task or a problem or something they're working towards and give them the chance to do that together. To be successful, all students have to participate. The body of evidence outlining the benefits of collaborative learning is so large. This approach is really meaningful. It makes a difference to students. It helps you differentiate within your room. It also includes social wellbeing and psychological benefits, as well as links to academic performance. And I hate to say the word, I feel like it's a word I can't say, but after COVID, that social wellbeing, that opportunity to be together is so important. And they're still navigating their way back into the classroom, our young people, and navigating their way around devices in a different way, or back to community communication. So we see these collaborative learning tasks as a great opportunity in your classroom, both in a practical sense and in the, outside the kitchen sense, hopefully creating that opportunity for our young people to work together, supported by that body of evidence. All right, practical activities. I am a self-confessed kinesthetic learner, right? I'm just like the kids. I'm a bit more perhaps self-regulated than the kids. We've all got that student in the classroom that will just throw everything in the bowl and hope it all works. We've got our readers in the room. We've got our listening learners in the room. That's what makes our classroom so exciting. But we know that students bouncing into the kitchen, happy as Larry. I'm cooking, I'm eating, I'm having a good time. I don't know what happens for you, but I often get the students maybe not bouncing into my theory classroom, maybe having not that feeling of excitement. I'm in there going, yeah, it's a great lesson. And they're like, but we're not in the kitchen. So we're here to try and support everyone's classroom positivity by having classroom activities that are practical, that you don't just have to have in the kitchen. And some examples here to help you. Kimchi can be made anywhere. Grab some knives, grab some chopping boards, have your jars sterilised, and you can be building your kimchi, and it can be sitting in your cupboard in your room, ready for eating in a few weeks' time, a few days' time. Looking at eggs, you can bring that with you. Last semester, my Year 10s, we did an apple tasting. That was their favourite lesson for the whole semester. Unbelievable. Again, happens in the classroom. So we worked really hard to help to try and bridge that gap between what I do in the kitchen and what I do in the classroom. And also encouraging them to bring their workbook, their textbook with them everywhere they go. Another one of my favourite non-practical activities is thinking around doing the dishes. Oh, you can't see that because it blurred a little bit. But I love doing dishwashing activities. They don't have to have the soap there, but they can have all the props, the sponge, the plug. Let's put it in order. What have we got to do? Where are we going with this? To try and make that link. And I think working really hard to get all of our students excited all the time, we're hoping we've given you this. We've really focused on making a textbook that's going to create that momentum, that enthusiasm, that touch, taste, smell, feel, sound in every lesson and every classroom. And when you're looking at Indigenous ingredients, maybe you're going to bring a finger line in for them to look at, feel at, touch. Maybe you're going to bring in some different varieties of apple. Maybe you're going to have a whole range of breads. Again, you'll see those links from what you're doing in that practical to the theory. And hopefully we've helped to scaffold and make it a bit easier through what we've done, because we love it and we know our students do too. And finally, differentiation. And here, again, every student's different in our classroom. And as food teachers, we love a design brief because you can stretch those students. And sometimes you have to whisper, today I want you to challenge yourself. On this task, I really want you to show me what you're capable of. Because I've had a student in the past, a really capable student, who took a design brief and went, all right, I've got to use an ingredient I've never used before. I'm going to use quail eggs. I'm going to make a hot dog with quail eggs. He met the brief, but he didn't stretch. But with some prompting, with some pushing, with some encouragement, with some great briefs, and I think I've only picked 2 briefs. There's hundreds in the book for you, literally hundreds. But you can see that opportunity to stretch. Not only do design briefs meet the curriculum, as you've heard about from Fiona, but they also give our students a chance to shine. And I think when we all go home and open the fridge and go through the design brief every night of what's for dinner, we're actually building fantastic skills in our students. But by putting in some tricky things to think about, by scaffolding the number of ingredients they can have, it actually makes it more challenging. And if you look at the eggs for all meals of all of the day, again, look at that. They've got to investigate different methods of heat transfer. They've got to incorporate eggs that use 3 different methods. That actually makes life a bit trickier. So it is a challenging task. So you get that chance to bring your weaker ones up and your stronger ones further. There are other opportunities for differentiation in the task, and you'll see when Sabika talks to you about the features of the book, we've got extension opportunities and a whole range of activities. But just wanted to again come back to, if we're looking at those high impact teaching strategies, differentiation being one of those areas that's really important. And hopefully you're all feeling scaffolded here to offer those different opportunities to all our young people, because they deserve it. Back to you, Sabika.
Thank you so much, Fiona and Chrissy. Fabulous presentations. I'm sure our guests really enjoyed your time. So now I will present on some of our resources. So availability, everyone wants to know, when is our beautiful textbook coming out? You can actually preview the textbook now online. We have the whole book available for you to preview, plus an interactive sample chapter. So that will get you to have a look at that as well. Stock is due on the 7th of September, and that's a physical book into our warehouse. So please put in your orders so you don't, you might have to go to second print so you don't be disappointed. Also the cost. So everyone wants to know the cost of the textbook. We've got print and digital is available at $69.95. Then we have our digital only. So our digital only is $55.95. And the teacher resource package is $199.95. So you can purchase that on its own, but also we do have where we look after our schools, and if you purchase class sets or if it's placed on the school book list, we can provide you the teacher resource package complimentary. So that is something that you would want to get in touch with your resource consultant. So for your resource consultant in your areas, hopefully the next slide will come up and you'll be able to see who they are. So there you go. So they're the resource consultants for your different areas. I look after ACT, South Australia and Northern Territory. You have Kim Keane in Queensland, Nicole Donnelly in Western Australia, Emma Kapler in Victoria and Tasmania, who's the sales manager. So reach out to us and we can definitely answer any of your questions. But we have time, I think now, we still actually have time, so we can answer any questions that you may have now. So over to Paula, who is actually our publisher for this wonderful series textbook, and Paula will help facilitate the questions. Thank you, Paula.
Thanks, Sabika. I knew someone was going to forget to unmute, and that was me. So we have had a question from Angela, who wants to know a bit more about what's in the teacher package. So Fiona, would you like to take that one?
Thank you, Paula. In the teachers package, there are a number of different resources. To start off with, there is a curriculum in there for 7 to 10. It is based entirely on the textbook, so there are references to the textbook all the way through, and it follows as I've said in the other presentation, it follows the Australian curriculum. Within that teachers package, also for each chapter, direct links to any useful resources are there. If we've mentioned in the text, go to a particular reference, there are links there. So actual live links, rather than just, you have to go and Google whatever reference is made there. Also, there are other alternative activities which to tell you the truth, which I found brilliant from the 2 texts that Chrissy was involved with, the 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 ones. Obviously, with a single book, there was a lot of information in those books which are still really relevant and really useful. So we've put a lot of that stuff in. And I've been a teacher forever and ever and ever, and there's always something that you think, yeah, that's a gem that might be useful for other people. So we've actually put in some of those sorts of activities which I've always found invaluable as a teacher, and really engaging and good learning tasks, that sorts of things in there as well. Chrissy, do you want to add to that at all?
Oh, look, I think what's been really important to us is we want to give students deep learning. And so that, you know, we've tried to give you the best support that we can, because we know that having a teacher by your side in your toolbox and your toolkit makes a big difference. So I'm not sure that I've got anything more to add than what you've said, Fiona, other than we've worked really hard to give you the best that we can.
Yep.
I've got a couple of other little points. We do include suggested responses to all the questions.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
Teachers love that. They love answers. So that is included. We also will be having 2 PowerPoint presentations per chapter.
Thank you.
I've got a list, so it's easier for me. Modifiable worksheets, including design briefs. So I think you mentioned that as well. So that's sample assessment tasks, also included curriculum grids, weekly teaching programs, plus everything that Chrissy and that was mentioned before.
And the other thing I want to mention about those PowerPoints is they're set up like pop quizzes. So you've got an introduction and a revision one. So they're great. You can tell, you know, from Chrissy's enthusiasm, she starts her class with the pop quiz. And, you know, you've got that benchmarking, if you like, across the topic, across the chapter.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we did have a question about how many teachers per school can access the teachers package. So Becca, would you like to take that one?
Okay, so it is an individual code. It's a digital resource only, and you go to our Cambridge Go site and you activate it through the Cambridge Go site. So if you do purchase the teacher resource package, there are downloadable resources that we do permit you to network within your school, but just keep in mind the student PDF and the interactive textbook is 1 per student. So they're a bit different resources, and that's why they're costed differently as well. So it is important to realise that the textbook is designed 1 per student in a classroom environment. And then that way they'll be able to have access to their interactive textbook, which includes things like videos of the recipes, key skills, practical activities, rollover definitions, image galleries, visual glossaries, automatic drag and drop activities, and which they wouldn't get access to if it's not 1 per student. Thank you.
Thanks, Sabika. Now, I've just noticed Josephine's asked a question about the sample pages and that nutrition information panel. And thank you so much for picking that up. We actually did pick that up on our final check, and we got that image replaced with an Australian image. So you can be assured that that has been fixed, but thank you so much for looking at the sample pages and picking that one up.
There's a question from Crystal, and the question was, is it directly linked to the new Australian curriculum? We can confidently tell you that this is all about 9.0, and we know there's lots of discussion around what's coming, and I don't know what's happening in your faculty meetings, but certainly for here at us at school, last week there was lots of playing in the curriculum and looking through the website. So yes, this is 100% a not digital version, hard copy version 9.0.
So Sarah has asked, how long do you have access to the digital textbook for teachers? So we were having a little chat about this actually just before we started, because the digital textbook code, once it's activated, is valid for 4 years because it's a 7 to 10 book. So I suppose if you're teaching, you don't have to reactivate that every year. So Becca, have I got that right?
Yes, but just keep in mind the teacher resource package does not include the textbook does not include the interactive textbook of the student or the PDF. That's a separate purchase. So the teacher resource includes all the other material that we talked about earlier, and you can go online with the link that we can provide to you so that you can have a look at all the features and what's included. The student textbook, which is separate from the teacher resource package, is once the student activates that code you're right, Paula, it is valid for 4 years because it's a 7 to 10 resource.
Awesome. Now I've noticed there a question from Denise, who's a user of our VCE books. Hi, Denise. And she's asked something about the quizzes in the interactive. So Denise, I'll reach out to you directly, I think, after the webinar, just to get a bit more information about that, because I am not aware of that problem that you're having. So it'd be really good to know. So one of the other questions that I have been asked is, with the different states adopting and adapting and changing their version of the curriculum, how is this going to work in the classroom if I'm in Victoria and waiting for VCAR to tell me what the new curriculum is going to be, basically? Chrissy, do you want to take that one?
So thanks, Paula. We have really worked with the Australian curriculum. So working through that, digging deep into it, making sure that we're responding. What we saw last time we had the last version of Australian curriculum was that while states might have done things a little bit differently, they were mostly aligned, or it was less rather than different. So I think you'll find when you sit with the book, when you look through the chapters, when you see the links through the scope and sequence, you'll find that direct correlation, and you'll see opportunity to where you can link it. No matter where your state lands, everyone comes from within the Australian curriculum, if that kind of makes sense what I'm saying. So I think you can be confident that what you need will be there. Victoria, I don't think, will stray from food specialisations and design process and properties. So, I'd be really surprised if that when the curriculum is launched, whatever state you're in, if it doesn't match, then reach out, because we're here to help you. But I think you'll find it will work on every front.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about, or a little bit more about, is those videos that are in the interactive. And in fact, the recipes, because that's been one of the big focuses that I've had in publishing the book, was to make sure that the recipes all work. So we have tested every single recipe in the book, so you can be sure that it'll work in your classroom, because it worked for us. And there was quite a team of enthusiastic volunteers, I will say, who helped me test all those recipes.
Lifelong learners they were, Paula, lifelong learners.
Lifelong learners indeed. And we photographed, they even took photos. So a lot of those recipe images, someone cooked it at home and took a photo. So I think that's really, really valuable that that's done. And then we have also, what have we got? At least one per chapter, a little video, sort of a quick overview of how to make the recipe. We went to the kitchen for 2 days and we made a whole bunch of recipes with a chef and filmed it. And I am super excited for you to see those videos, because I just think you could flip that classroom. You could watch the video, and then the teacher doesn't have to do a demo. There's skills demos as well as the recipes in there. So I think, Fiona, you were heavily involved with this whole thing. Tell me what's your experience of it?
All through my teaching career, right, you sit and do a demonstration, or you don't do it. You do a dem in front of the class, and every time you do it, I remember one week I did the same dem 5 times, because we had 5 year 7 groups. And I used to, in the back of my head, I should videotape this so that the kids have it, and I don't have to do it, and I've got extra time. You never have time as a teacher to do those sorts of things. And for the first time ever, I've been given the time to help facilitate this process. And I think it's useful not only for the time poor teacher to put the video on or set it for homework, but it's also really, really useful for, if you think about nowadays, I know some schools are going from 6-period days, and you might get 2 periods in a day, to 4-period days, where you might get one 72-minute period in a whole week to teach the entire course. And it is impossible. I've been through that I think process within a school. And if you can just say, okay, I want you to watch X video and we'll go straight into the cooking when you get in, that really actually helps enormously. And lastly, I know in Victoria, we are dead short of food studies or food technology teachers. They are as scarce as hen's teeth. I'm being asked, I'm sort of almost retired, and I'm being asked every week, oh, can you come and fill in? Can you do this? Can you do that? Unfortunately, more and more there are either teachers who are technology teachers but not food technology teachers, or teachers who maybe a science teacher or other area teachers who may not actually have any formal training in the foods, and these will really, really help those people. And as things change, as our techniques and our knowledge changes about food and food practices, they're actually really great little learning things for teachers as well, so the teacher can actually learn the skills. It's really interesting when the chef did the kneading one that's actually in the materials that you've already seen, that kneading thing, it was fascinating to watch that and listen to the video over to see how, it really shows how a really sticky dough can become quite a good dough with just work. And I've been teaching, I won't say how many long, but a very, very long time, and you know it, but you don't know why. It was actually really good, so I highly recommend.
Thank you so much. We've got a few questions coming in about the recipes. What class length? I know period lengths are a tricky one. Chrissy, would you like to talk to that?
Yeah, sure. And look, it's always something we're mindful of, even just within the author team. We come from different schools and different period lengths. I've moved to a new school and it's a whole new world. So very mindful of trying to ensure recipes can be made in a 60-minute, 75-minute, 100-minute. Obviously, some recipes will be longer or shorter than others, and there's shortcuts you can make. So by working hard to provide a number of recipes, it means you can pick and choose for your context. And again, too, I'm really mindful that everyone's cohort is different. Everyone's location is different. What I can do in my classroom, you might be able to do differently in your classroom just based on the students that you have, the number, a whole range of different reasons. So there are ways you can, shut the recipe down a bit quicker, cook in pairs or skip a session, or maybe halve the ingredients. So there's all those tips that you can do when you look at a recipe and say, I want to do this, how can I make it work? But hopefully as you look through the book and you see the resource and the teaching plan, you go, yep. Well, you can do most of them really in that 60-minute session. So we've worked really hard to target every teacher, every classroom, accessibility, availability. And if you've got 100 minutes and you go, oh, that's only 60 minutes, what am I going to do for the other 40? You might be doing some sensory activities. You might be saying to your students, here's a whole range of herbs. Let's, play with flavour. So you've got the chance to change things around a bit. The other thing to think around too is you've got so many different design briefs that you've got the chance to incorporate them into your lesson. So it might be that you might do a design brief across 2 lessons or something like that. But we've hopefully made it really easy for you to go, I can cook all of these things in all of my lessons, regardless of what time you are, because that's always the number one priority when we write.
Yeah. And I've got to say, quite a lot of the recipes in there, I actually have used in my classroom. In fact, the picture of the pasties, which I think you've seen already, one of my students built those pasties, so they're quite doable, and that was in about a 72-minute period. So it is possible to do all of these in the average time.
Yeah, and I should second that and say I always cook the same those recipes too. We've tried to give you the ones that we know students will love, that they will learn from. But, you don't want to walk out of the room past the bin that's full of the product that your students made from the minute they've walked out the door. There's no learning's going on, no enjoyment is happening there. So we think they're recipes that students love. How do we know? We don't think we know. How do we know it? Because they're our tried, true, tested, loved. Yeah.
And also on that idea of tried and tested, we've also looked at trends in what kids are liking. So there's bubble tea in there because that's, you know, that's where it is now. So we've also looked at lots of different Asian cooking as well, and Southeast Asian, South Pacific cooking, so that we're keeping up to date with what's modern and what the kids actually want to cook rather than what we used to cook when we were starting.
And my students had a light bulb. Oh, sorry, Fiona. Oh, sorry, Paula. My students had a light bulb moment with the bubble tea, because they go and they buy one and it costs them $8, $9, maybe more. And they've looked at it, we've costed it, I've shown them what it is, and they've suddenly gone, wow, I can make a bigger, better, brighter one for less. So it's really, really cool. Sorry, Paula.
No, I was going to say some of those First Nations ingredients too, you know. I know, Fiona, you know, took some effort to make them accessible. They're not things that you have to send away for and order, you know. Yeah, they're things that you can literally walk around and just speaking personally now, I noticed a saltbush plant on my daily walk. So I've learned something too.
That's cool.
So Caitlin asked how many chapters. There are 12 chapters. And they are, other than that structure you talked about, they generally encompass the Australian Guide to Healthy Eating. You've got those early chapters which are more skill-based and practical, and obviously starting with safety. And then you've got those later chapters looking at, so I imagine, not being a teacher, that you're sort of working through that sequentially. Is that how you would use it? I know those last few chapters are international food and special diets, and then the marketing thing, the design chapter.
It can be really used any way that you want. You know, I can imagine the text being started at page 1 and working through the years, but I've never been that sort of textbook user, and I always delve into a textbook and just pull the bits and pieces out that I want or need for my needs. So I think it can be used anyway.
And Caitlin, you'll be rapt to know that 12 might sound like a lot for a 4-year program, but there's definitely enough in there to cover your 7 right through to year 10, and it's supported with the scope and sequence that's been written in all the programs. But yeah, there's a lot in there.
I know that extension material too, it was important to sort of identify, you know, what that higher order content is, so you can go back and you can use it again, you know, and you can do the same thing with your 7s and 8s and your 9s and 10s. And
Yep.
All right. I think we've possibly covered everything. There's no more questions coming in the chat, which is about right, because I think everyone is ready to go and have a cup of tea and a cookie.
Well, on behalf of Cambridge University Press, please join me in thanking our authors for their contributions this evening and wishing you all a very good evening. So good night, and thank you everyone for attending. We've really appreciated, and thank you Chrissy and Fiona for all your wonderful knowledge, and Paula. Thank you everyone. Good night.